Let's talk about what it looks like to sustain optimal peak performance, recovery, and growth. Because one of the misconceptions that I think a lot of high performers have, a lot of people who are aspiring to be at their best, is that we can just bear down and push through, and eventually we'll achieve those goals way out on the horizon, or eventually we'll get to that place that we want to, that we're aspiring towards. When in reality, if we look at sustained peak performance or sustained optimal performance over time, right? That word sustained is really important. And if we look at it through the lens of the nervous system and our emotional state, we actually are able to upgrade our toolkit, our way of navigating the world, and especially the world within, the journey within, so that we can perform, recover, and grow more effectively and efficiently. And so we're just going to spend a couple of minutes here talking about what does it look like to perform and recover at our best from a nervous system perspective, and then from an emotional resilience or emotional state perspective. Okay, so let's talk about the nervous system. Right here you can see, and we'll try and zoom it in so you can see this. Our nervous system is really moving between a few different states, one of three states. Either we're in a fight or flight, a mobilized state. You think about when we have anxiety or anger or frustration or just a little bit of or a lot of energy on board, right? Our body feels really mobilized. A lot of times we can feel this like energy moving in the body. When we're way, way up here, it can feel like panic or having a full anger meltdown, frustration meltdown. On the complete other end of that spectrum, what our nervous system does is if it says, you know what, we don't think we can fight our way out of this, we don't think we can bear down anymore, our system actually moves into what's called a state of collapse. So our whole entire nervous system is going to bring our body into essentially what I think of as the cave. We're going to be very low energy, lethargic. We're not going to feel like we can get up into these states of flow or even up into a state of mobilization because our body, our nervous system is moving into collapse, disassociation, disengagement. And in the middle, we have this beautiful state of healing, growth, and restoration where we feel like we are safe, we have meaningful connections to self and to others, and we have this feeling of belonging in the present moment. And that can either show up as full healing and restoration, or if we blend in a little bit of sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? We move up from this band of just full healing, full restoration, we move into flow, into play. And so our nervous system can blend these states together. It can say, okay, you feel really safe, really connected, you feel grounded and connected to yourself, and you want to perform. Let's bring in some sympathetic. Let's mobilize and turn on the system. And that's where we want to find our peak performance. We don't want to find states of peak performance or access states of peak performance through being angry or trying to push down the anxiety and just hold on. While we may be able to do that in a moment, it's not sustainable long term. And I'll come back to the nervous system in a second, but really the keys to your nervous system and sustained optimal performance is that your nervous system through this back part of the back of the brain called our brainstem is always looking for safety, and it's perceiving or surveying the landscape and looking for threat. So it needs safety, but if there's threat in our external environment, in our internal environment, so even think about if you start feeling like you're getting sick, or if you have lots of negative thoughts in your head, your nervous system through the brainstem is going to perceive that as threat. And it's going to immediately move the whole body into suboptimal states of performance and recovery, which would be protection, defense, panic, or potentially all the way down to collapse. And so we need to be gentle and understand, right, meet the body where it is, and know that if we can incorporate it, we can build in more cues of safety, more cues of connection and belonging within ourselves, in the environment, in our relationships, we'll actually be able to move into a more flowy state of sustained optimal performance and recovery. So let's just shift gears and talk about our emotional state for a second, because these two go hand in hand, right? We can feel things in the body in terms of where we're at, what our energy is doing, maybe even point to where our nervous system is. But then we could also turn on or put on a different lens and say, what are my emotions doing? What are my feelings doing? Because our emotional state is going to be directly tied to how, not only how well we can perform, how quickly and efficiently we can recover, but also how long we can sustain that, right? Are we renewing our energy, and are we rebuilding our resilience, or are we being drained and sucked of it? And so essentially in this graph, this is called the depletion to renewal grid. It's something that we go over and over again. And really for today, I want to talk about on the left-hand side, this red color, these are depleting emotions. And either they're big emotions like anger, frustration, resentment, overwhelm, or they're softer but still depleting emotions like sadness, disappointment, disengagement, being lethargic. And on the right-hand side, we've got our renewing emotions. Obviously, this is where we want to be. So things that are big renewing emotions, that would be in this flow state, are excitement, passion, flow states, play. And then down in healing, growth, and restoration, we need to access this state. This is like complete ease, calm, restoration, right? The right-hand side of the grid is where we want to spend our time. And so as you think about building your toolkit for sustained peak performance, optimal recovery, holistic growth, the first thing that we want to do is we need to meet the body where it is. Where is my nervous system? Where are my emotions? And then from the nervous system perspective, we need to first meet the body where it is, and we need to start thinking about how can I incorporate little cues of safety, connection, and belonging into my internal environment. So if I'm feeling under the weather or my immune system, my energy is burnt out, I'm kind of run down, then we need to take care of our physical body. We need to do things that are going to nourish and nurture our physical body, and our brainstem actually interprets that as safety. It allows us to access a little bit more nervous system state of healing, growth, and restoration. We also need to have safety and connection in our relationships. So think about, are there places where you're holding on to things? You have depleting emotions in your relationships. And if you can reconcile or work on those, or in some cases, maybe let them go, right? Take them out of the equation, that will incorporate more safety. It'll bring you into a more optimal nervous system state. And then finally, our environment. So we need to be in environments that make us feel safe. And there's times in life when we're performing or we're showing up at our very best. We're in the workplace, on the court, right, in family, in community, and we may not have all those cues of safety in our external environment. And so we actually need to take control of that and build those in intentionally. And that can be as simple as finding places and spaces in your physical environment throughout the day where you feel like you can just be at peace. So for me, being in nature is a really great example. Being able to be somewhere quiet and undistracted and do some breathing or meditation is a great example. Incorporating greenery and plants into my environment. I love holding ocean stones. So I have those laying around all over the place. And these are all little cues of safety where I know those cues are going to help me get back to a really meaningful state of healing, restoration, and growth. And it's going to give me enough connection so that when I'm ready to perform, I can bring on some of that flow state, some of that energy, that mobilization, while not losing connection. And on the emotional side, the key to think about is what are the ways that we can get out of our head and into our body, and even more specifically into our heart. The fastest path from depleting states to renewing states is to get out of our own way, get out of this thing. And so that can be as simple as taking a moment to write down things that you're grateful for, because gratitude and appreciation, it helps us zoom out. So if we're angry or frustrated or disappointed over something that's happening right now, sometimes just zooming out and saying, you know what am I thankful for in life? What are the big things? That can kind of help maybe give me a little bit more peace, a little bit more contentment. We can also use modalities like the breath, like moving our body, like changing our environment to shift from depleting states into renewing states. And then even more importantly, we can take on practices that will move us from our head to our heart. So heart focused breathing, which we've done a lot of, we'll do for a moment right here at the very end. Getting out in nature and just going for a 10-minute walk, that has a positive effect on our nervous system, as well as oftentimes will help soften some of these depleting emotions. Maybe you'll move from anger down into like just sadness or disappointment. And then maybe we start thinking about ways that we can build in safety and connection to move into peace so that we can be into full states of healing, growth, recovery, restoration, and we can start to come back to center and begin priming ourselves to move up into those great peak performance windows. And then ultimately, as we work on this, what happens is that we have a toolkit. We have what sometimes is called a container of safety, connection, and belonging, where There are going to be times where we end up in depleting emotional states. There are going to be times when we end up in states of defense and protection, panic and anxiety, maybe collapse down in the cave where you want to be all alone. But we understand that we can, at any given point in time, we have the agency, the empowerment to meet the body where it is and use all these tools, these little neural interventions, right? These things that will help us come back to center, incorporate safety, connection, and belonging, get ourselves into the right-hand side of the emotional grid, renewing emotions, and then move ourselves into more calm and restorative states of healing, growth, and restoration through the nervous system. And that allows us to start to create this sustainable um, pathway of performance, peak performance, recovery, and growth. Over time, the best performers, not again over weeks and months, but years and decades, are the ones that can find their way back here and find their way back here. We're going to end with a little moment of heart-focused breathing. We can never do too much of this wherever you are. I just want you to settle into your space. If you can be undistracted, although this technique is meant to be on the go. So when you're in the middle of something really big and you feel yourself slipping over to the left-hand side of the grid, use heart-focused breathing. Use it with your eyes open. People don't even know that you're doing it. So for right now, I'll do this with my eyes open and you can follow along. So I'm just going to start by bringing my attention into the body. And for me, you can see I'm moving. I'm kind of feeling into my body a little bit. I can feel the energy moving. And then eventually I'm going to start to really focus my attention down in my chest and in my area of the heart. And I'm going to start by taking a nice inhale and exhale through my nose, bringing all of that attention into my heart. And I'm going to imagine my breath is flowing in and out of my heart, filling up my chest. And immediately, you probably can see this and you'll feel it in yourself. My breath is just immediately getting deeper and slower. And I can feel everything dropping on the exhale, my shoulders, my arms, the energy is slowing down. And we just need to sustain that breath for 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 breaths. That's all it is. And as you transition out of heart-focused breathing, like right now, this moment, check in with yourself. Ask yourself, what moved? What happened? I can definitely feel like I was probably up here, and I just took a little bit of a moment down here. So the other way is I was in a flow state, and now I've come back down into a little bit more healing, growth, and restoration. You can probably even hear that in the sound of my voice. So something we'll talk about a different day is that where your nervous system is, your whole body mirrors that. It broadcasts it. So you're experiencing me doing that a little bit. And even if you go and you rewatch this, listen to the tone and the sound and the energy in my voice at the beginning versus right now. And that's just a little bit of an example of how easily and how quickly we can shift states when we're looking at sustained performance and recovery and growth through the lens of our emotional state and our emotional resilience and our nervous system adaptability. How can we move? Okay, I want you to go out and try this. I want you to think about it, and I want you to let me know what comes up for you. What questions do you have, and what are you experiencing? What are you learning? What are you noticing?